The first time I heard my son-in-law say it, I was standing in the hallway outside their bedroom. God, your mom's perfume. It lingers everywhere. It's that old people smell. Then a laugh, sharp and cutting. Think we can get her to stop wearing it? My daughter's response was too quiet to hear, but whatever she said, it wasn't a defense. Not of her mother. Not of the woman who had just dropped off 3 home-cooked meals because Rachel mentioned she'd been too busy with work to cook. But before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I stood there, cashmere sweater pulled tight around me. The $200 bottle of Jo Malone perfume my daughter had given me for Christmas suddenly feeling like a weapon used against me. I'm only 58, hardly ancient, but in that moment, I felt every one of those years like stones in my pockets. What Alex didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have imagined as he lounged in the luxury apartment I had helped them afford, was that just that morning, I had transferred another $75,000 into the business account for Elevate Tech Solutions. His business, his dream, his chance to prove himself to the world, and my chance, apparently, to smell like old people. My name is Linda Wilson. I built my first real estate portfolio before I turned 30, flipping houses in neighborhoods. Everyone else had written off. Back then, being underestimated was my secret weapon. Just a housewife with a hobby, they'd say, right before I'd acquire the property they wanted, right from under their noses. Now, at 58, I own commercial properties across 3 states, have a steady stream of passive income, and still get up at 5 a.m. because I love what I do. My husband Robert is the gentler soul between us. He taught literature at the community college for 30 years before his heart condition forced early retirement. We raised our daughter Rachel to know the value of hard work, but also generosity. She was our only child, and perhaps we spoiled her. Not with things, but with security. She never knew what it was like to worry about money. When Rachel brought home Alex Parker 3 years ago, I wanted to like him. I really did. He was handsome in that polished Denver way, expensive haircut, carefully maintained stubble, Patagonia vest over button-downs. He had big dreams and bigger talk about revolutionizing environmental tech solutions. His pitch was flawless. I'll give him that. As someone who has sat through hundreds of investment proposals, I recognize the talent. "Mom, he's brilliant," Rachel gushed over brunch at our favorite spot in Cherry Creek. "His ideas could change everything about how businesses handle their carbon footprint." Robert squeezed my hand under the table, our silent signal to reserve judgment. So I smiled and asked Alex about his business plan. The enthusiasm was there, the vision, but something in his eyes flickered when I asked about funding. "We've got several interested investors," he said smoothly, "just finalizing some details." I nodded, knowing what those words usually meant. No solid commitments. In my experience, people with secured funding don't hesitate to name names. 6 months later, they were engaged. 3 months after that, Rachel called me in tears. "Alex's business partner backed out," she said. "He's going to lose everything he's worked for." I closed my eyes, trying to ignore the warning bells. "How much does he need?" $200,000, she whispered. "I know it's a lot, Mom. I wouldn't ask, but this is his dream." Robert was against it from the start. Give them money for a house, for a wedding, not for a business that has no track record, he argued that night as we lay in bed. If his idea is so revolutionary, why isn't anyone else willing to invest? But I remembered what it was like, to have people doubt me, to have doors slammed in my face because I didn't fit someone's idea of what success looked like. "I'll help," I told Rachel the next day, "but we do this my way." My way meant creating a holding company that would make the investment anonymously. Alex would never know the money came from his mother-in-law. My way meant monthly reports to me through Victor Rodriguez, who I installed as the new business partner, ostensibly representing my holding company. My way meant Alex would have to earn every penny. "But why can't he know it's you?" Rachel asked. "Because true confidence comes from believing you've earned something on merit," I replied. "If he knows it's family money, he'll never feel like he's standing on his own 2 feet." Rachel bit her lip but nodded. My daughter had inherited my practicality, if not my suspicion. The wedding was lovely, an elegant affair at the Denver Botanic Gardens, with the mountains as backdrop. I wore a silver dress that made me feel regal, and Robert looked handsome in his tuxedo despite having lost weight from his heart treatments. As I watched my daughter promise herself to Alex, I pushed away my reservations. She loved him. That would have to be enough. After the honeymoon, they moved into the downtown loft apartment, another gift from us, though we'd pretended it was. Just a generous lease arrangement through one of my properties. Rachel landed a senior marketing position at a respected firm. Alex threw himself into Elevate Tech Solutions with renewed vigor, now that the company had outside investment. For 6 months, everything seemed perfect. Rachel glowed with happiness. Alex's business began to gain traction. Victor reported that Alex was hardworking, innovative, and driven. I began to think maybe I'd misjudged him. Then came the dinner party at their loft. It was an impressive gathering, mostly Alex's business contacts and potential clients. Robert couldn't attend. His doctor had advised against late nights. So I arrived alone, bearing a bottle of expensive champagne and wearing my new cashmere, sweater, hair freshly done, and yes, a light spray of the Joe Malone perfume Rachel had given me. "Mom!" Rachel hugged me at the door, her smile genuine but eyes tense. "I'm so glad you could make it." I handed her the champagne. "Thought you might want to celebrate properly. Victor tells me the Hoffman contract is practically in the bag." A flash of confusion crossed her face before she recovered. "Right, yes. Alex is thrilled. Come in, let me introduce you to everyone." The apartment looked stunning. Rachel had always had an eye for design. The crowd was younger, Denver's tech elite and environmentally conscious investors, all sleek clothing and calculated casualness. I felt a familiar discomfort, the sensation of being the oldest person in the room, but squared my shoulders. I'd built an empire while most of these people were still in grade school. Alex spotted me from across the room, where he was deep in conversation with a man in a designer suit. His smile tightened infinitesimally before he excused himself and came over. "Linda," he said, kissing me on the cheek with practiced warmth. "You didn't have to drive all this way. I know how you hate city traffic." I lived 20 minutes away, in Lakewood. Hardly a treacherous journey. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. "I'm so proud of what you're accomplishing." He nodded, glancing around the room. "Let me introduce you to some people who are changing the world." The evening progressed, pleasantly enough. I spoke with several intelligent young entrepreneurs, a woman who had developed sustainable packaging materials, and a venture capitalist who subtly tried to figure out if I was worth talking to. I enjoyed watching him recalibrate when I casually mentioned one of my commercial properties his firm was currently attempting to lease. It was while getting a fresh drink that I overheard them. Alex and a friend, standing just around the corner in the kitchen. "Your mother-in-law seems nice," the friend said. "She's fine," Alex replied, his voice lower. "Old money, old ideas. Doesn't really get what we're trying to do here." The friend laughed. "But old money spends just as well, right? If I could get my hands on it, sure, but she's tight with it. The apartment's just on loan, technically. Rachel thinks we should be grateful." His voice took on a mocking tone. "As if we're charity cases." I froze, glass in hand. "At least she came alone," Alex continued. "Her husband's this frail academic type, always looking at me like I'm some specimen he's trying to classify." "That's in-laws for you," his friend commiserated. "Yeah, but the worst is that perfume she wears. Thinks it's classy, but it reeks. Rachel bought it for her, and now I have to smell it every time she visits. I set my glass down silently and walked away, heart pounding in my chest. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I made polite conversation, smiled at the right moments, and left as soon as was socially acceptable. Driving home, I thought about the $75,000 I had authorized just that morning. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The total was up to $350,000 now. Money that was helping Alex shine in front of all those people who had no idea that his brilliant environmental startup was being bankrolled by the old money mother-in-law he so casually disparaged. When I got home, Robert was waiting up, despite doctor's orders. "How was it?" he asked, setting aside his book. I considered lying, then thought better of it. In 35 years of marriage, I'd never been anything but honest with him. "Enlightening," I said, and told him everything. Robert's face darkened with each word, the gentle professor giving way to the protective husband. I knew there was something off about him. The way he looks at you when he thinks no one is watching. "It's just words," I said, suddenly tired. "No," Robert shook his head. "Words reveal character, and his character is showing." I sighed, removing my earrings. "What do I do? If I tell Rachel, I break her heart and reveal that I've been secretly funding his business. If I do nothing—" "You're not doing nothing," Robert said firmly. "You're going to protect your investment and your daughter." The next morning, I called Victor Rodriguez and asked him to meet me for coffee. Victor had worked with me for years, first as an ambitious property manager, now as my most trusted business associate. He was in his 40s, sharp, and had an uncanny ability to read people. I had specifically chosen him to be my eyes and ears in Alex's business. "How honest have you been with me about Elevate?" I asked him once we were seated at a quiet corner. Victor's expression remained neutral. "What specifically are you asking, Linda? Is Alex as brilliant as he pretends to be? Is the business truly viable, or am I throwing good money after bad?" Victor took a slow sip of his coffee. "The technology is promising. The business model is sound. With proper management and continued investment, Elevate could be very successful." "And Alex?" A slight hesitation. "He works hard. He's an excellent salesman. But he takes shortcuts, makes promises we can barely keep. And he's developing an expensive taste for business. Lunches, conference trips, and office upgrades that don't generate returns." Victor leaned forward. "He also doesn't know how the money works. He thinks it's all coming from venture capital firms. I do the financial reports exactly as you instructed. Complex enough that he signs without reading the details." I nodded, slowly turning my coffee cup in its saucer. "Thank you for your honesty. May I ask what's changed?" "Nothing yet," I said, "but I need you to do something for me. Starting today, I want you to gradually increase your visibility in the company. Take more credit for the funding connections. Make it clear that the money flows through you." Victor studied me carefully. "You're setting something up." "I'm protecting my investment," I replied, echoing Robert's words. "And I may need to make some personnel changes in the near future." Over the next few weeks, I maintained my distance. I declined Rachel's invitations for dinner, claiming busyness with a new property acquisition. Instead, I focused on learning everything about Elevate Tech Solutions, its patents, contracts, financial obligations, and growth potential. Victor provided detailed reports, far more candid than before. The picture that emerged confirmed my suspicions. Alex had talent but lacked substance. The business was promising but needed steadier leadership. And most tellingly, Alex was growing increasingly resentful of Victor's more prominent role. "He cornered me after the board meeting," Victor reported during one of our coffee meetings. "Wanted to know why I was suddenly taking over presentations to potential clients. What did you tell him? That our investors prefer my approach. That didn't go over well. I allowed myself a small smile. No, I imagine it wouldn't. 3 months after the dinner party, Rachel called and invited me to Sunday brunch, just the two of us. Her voice sounded strained, and I agreed immediately, suggesting the cafe near the river walk. When she arrived, I could see the tension in her shoulders, the careful way she held herself. My daughter had always been an open book to me. Something was wrong. "How's work?" I asked after we ordered, keeping my tone casual. "Busy but good." She fiddled with her napkin. "We landed the national campaign I was working on." "That's wonderful, honey. And how's Alex? The business?" Her smile tightened. "That's partly why I wanted to talk to you." I waited, giving her space to find her words. "Things are stressful right now. Alex is working so hard, and there's a lot of pressure with this new round of investment." She took a breath. We think, it might be better if you gave us a little space for a while." The words hung between us like smoke. I kept my face carefully neutral. "Space?" Rachel rushed to explain. "It's just for a few weeks. There's so much happening with the company, and Alex gets tense when family is around during business stress. You know how men can be about appearing successful." "I see," I said softly. "And this is coming from both of you?" She hesitated, a fraction too long. "Yes, we just need some breathing room." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Rachel, you know you can tell me anything, right? If something's wrong." "Nothing's wrong," she insisted too quickly. "Everything's fine. Great, actually. The business is taking off. We're talking about starting a family soon. It's just temporary growing pains." I studied my daughter's face, the shadows under her eyes, the tension in her jaw. Something had changed. The confident marketing executive was being eclipsed by something else, someone else's influence. "Of course," I said finally. "I understand completely. You take all the time you need." Relief flooded her face, and that hurt more than her request for distance. "Thanks, Mom. I knew you'd understand." As we finished our meal with careful conversation about safe topics, I made my decision. Understanding and accepting were two very different things. That afternoon, I called Maggie Chen. As my financial advisor for 15 years, she was one of the few people who knew about my anonymous investment in Elevate. "I need to make some changes," I told her, "and I'll need your absolute discretion." "You've always had it," she replied. "What are we doing?" "Restructuring my investment in my son-in-law's company. I want full control, but I need it to look like it's coming from outside." There was a pause on the line. "Linda, are you sure about this? Family and business are already mixed," I finished for her. "Now I'm just making sure I'm not the only one who doesn't know what's happening at the dinner table." 1 week later, Victor called me with news I had been expecting. "Alex is trying to push me out," he said without preamble. He's approached the board about restructuring the executive team, with him as sole CEO. "And how did the board respond?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Maggie had been busy. "They've called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. Apparently there's a major new investor who has some concerns about current management." I smiled into the phone. How inconvenient for Alex. "Linda," Victor's voice grew serious. "Whatever you're planning, be careful. This is your daughter's husband." "I'm aware," I said, which is exactly why it needs to be done right. Liki. Next day, I dressed with particular care, a tailored navy suit I reserved for my most important meetings, subtle gold jewelry, and yes, a light spray of that Jo Malone perfume. Old people smell or not, it was a gift from my daughter, and I would wear it with pride. As I drove to the Denver Tech Center where Elevate's offices were located, I thought about Rachel, about the change in her over recent months, about what it meant that she had been the one tasked with creating distance between us. The pieces were falling into place, and I didn't like the picture they formed. Elevate occupied the 15th floor of a gleaming glass tower, impressive for a startup, but another sign of Alex's premature spending. The receptionist looked startled when I gave my name. "Oh, Mrs. Wilson. We weren't. I don't think you're on the calendar." "I'm here for the board meeting," I said pleasantly. "Please let Mr. Rodriguez know I've arrived." Her eyes widened, slightly. "The board meeting? But that's a closed session, yes. I'm aware." I maintained my smile. "Please make that call." Moments later, Victor appeared in the reception area, his expression carefully professional, though I could see the glint of appreciation in his eyes. "Mrs. Wilson, thank you for coming. The board is just getting settled." He gestured toward the conference room. "Shall we?" The expressions on the faces when I walked into that boardroom would have been comical under different circumstances. Alex at the head of the table froze mid-sentence. The 3 board members, all representatives chosen by Maggie, looked unsurprised but intrigued. "What is this?" Alex recovered quickly, shifting into his charming mode. "Linda, this is a closed meeting. I'm sure Rachel would be happy to have dinner soon, but right now—" "Actually," I interrupted smoothly, "I'm right where I need to be." I took the empty seat across from him. "Please continue. I believe you were discussing reorganization of the executive team?" Alex's facade slipped for a moment, confusion and annoyance flashing across his face. He looked at Victor. "What is she doing here?" The chairman of the board, a distinguished man in his 60s who owed me a significant favor, cleared his throat. "Mr. Parker, allow me to introduce Linda Wilson properly. Ms. Wilson represents Wilson Holdings, the primary investment vehicle behind Elevate's initial and ongoing funding." The color drained from Alex's face as understanding dawned. "What? No, that's impossible. Our primary investor is Summit Ventures. They're a Silicon Valley firm." "Summit Ventures is a subsidiary of Wilson Holdings," I said calmly, "which means that for the past 18 months, I've been your primary investor." Alex stared at me in stunned silence. "Now," I continued, "I believe we were discussing leadership concerns. Please, don't let my presence disrupt the agenda." The meeting proceeded with excruciating formality. The board presented their concerns about current management practices, excessive spending, and questionable decision-making. Victor outlined his alternative vision for the company. Throughout, Alex grew increasingly agitated, his perfect pitch failing him for perhaps the first time in his professional life. Finally, when the presentation concluded, Alex slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. You can't just waltz in here and take over a company I built from nothing." I raised an eyebrow. "From nothing?" Interesting perspective for someone who received an initial investment of $200,000 and subsequent infusions totaling another $350,000. "That money was from legitimate investors who believed in my vision," he insisted. "That money," I said, each word precise, "was from me. Every dollar. And while I still believe in the company's potential, I've lost faith in your ability to lead it." His face contorted. "This is about Rachel, isn't it? She put you up to this because I asked for some space from her overbearing family?" The room grew very quiet. "No, Alex. This is about business. Your business practices have been questionable at best, fraudulent at worst. You've misrepresented expenditures, inflated projections, and taken credit for innovations that came from your team." I opened the folder Victor had provided and slid several documents across the table. "This is a formal notice of leadership change. The board has already approved it. Effective immediately, Victor Rodriguez will assume the role of CEO. You will remain as Chief Innovation Officer, focusing on product development, which frankly is where your talents actually lie." Alex stared at the papers, his breathing shallow. You can't do this. I already have, I replied. And before you consider fighting this legally, I suggest you review your original investment agreement, particularly the clauses regarding financial mismanagement. The chairman spoke up. The board is unanimous on this matter, Mr. Parker. We believe this structure better serves the company's future. Alex looked around the table, finding no allies. Finally, his eyes locked on mine, cold with fury. You planned this from the beginning, didn't you? Wormed your way into my business to control me? No, I said quietly. I invested because my daughter loves you, and I wanted you to succeed. But then I heard what you really think of me. Of my old money. Of my old people smell. His face paled. You entered my family, accepted our help, lived in our property, took our money, all while mocking us behind our backs. You used my daughter to create distance when it suited you. So yes, I protected my investment, both financial and familial. I stood, smoothing my suit jacket. Oh, and Alex? The apartment you're living in? The lease will need to be renegotiated. Under the current arrangement, only family members receive preferential rates. As I walked out of that boardroom, I felt no triumph, only resolution. There would be fallout. With Rachel, possibly severe. She might not forgive me, at least not immediately, but I had protected her future, even if she couldn't see it yet. In the elevator, Victor caught up with me. That was both the most terrifying and impressive thing I've ever witnessed, he said quietly. Sometimes the best investments are the ones you don't make, I replied. And sometimes the most important ones have nothing to do with money. The hardest part was still ahead, telling my daughter that I had just demoted her husband and exposed his true character. But I had evidence. Of everything. His financial mismanagement, his disparaging comments, the gradual isolation of Rachel from her family. If she still chose him after knowing everything, at least it would be with open eyes. As I stepped out into the Denver sunshine, my phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Mom, we need to talk. Something's happened with Alex's company. I took a deep breath and typed back, I know, sweetheart. Come to the house tonight. It's time for some truths. Whatever came next, I would face it with the same determination that had built my business empire. Because some investments were worth protecting at all costs. And my daughter was the most valuable one of all. The next morning, my phone rang at 6:30 a.m. Rachel's name flashed across the screen, and my heart clenched. I had expected her call, but not quite this early. Taking a deep breath, I answered. Mom. Her voice was strained, almost unrecognizable. What did you do? I moved to the patio, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the mountains in the distance. I protected an investment. An investment, she repeated, her voice rising. You humiliated my husband in front of his entire board. Rachel, I said gently, we need to talk in person, not over the phone. No, we need to talk now. Her words tumbled out, frantic and emotional. Alex came home yesterday completely destroyed. He said you blindsided him, that you've been secretly controlling his company from the beginning. Is that true? Were you behind Elevate's funding this whole time? I closed my eyes briefly. Yes. The silence that followed was deafening. Why? She finally asked, her voice small. Why would you do that without telling me? Because you asked me to help him, I replied. You called me in tears, saying his business partner had backed out, that he was going to lose everything. I wanted to help, but on my terms. By lying? By setting him up to fail? No, I said firmly. By giving him a genuine chance to succeed based on his own merit. I didn't want him to feel like he was living off family money. I thought it would be better for his pride, for your marriage, if the investment seemed to come from outside. Rachel's bitter laugh cut through the line. His pride? Mom, He's devastated. He thinks our entire relationship has been some kind of setup, that I married him as part of your scheme to control his company. My stomach dropped. That's ridiculous. I only stepped in yesterday because of the financial mismanagement. Stop it, she snapped. Just stop. You had no right to interfere like this. Alex built that company from nothing. It was his vision, his work. With my money, I finished quietly. And yes, his vision has value. That's why he's still Chief Innovation Officer. But Rachel, there are things you don't know. Then tell me, she challenged. What horrible things has Alex done that justify you secretly taking over his company? I hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. I've had Victor monitoring the finances for months. There were inconsistencies, excessive spending, misrepresented projections. Business stuff, she cut in dismissively. Every startup has growing pains. You could have talked to him, helped him. Instead, you ambushed him. It's not just the business, I admitted. It's how he talks about our family when he thinks we can't hear. How he's been gradually isolating you from us. Rachel went quiet for a moment. What are you talking about? At your dinner party 3 months ago, I overheard him mocking us, to his friends. Calling me old, saying my perfume, the one you gave me, smelled like old people. Laughing about how your father looks at him. He was probably just blowing off steam, she said, but her voice had lost some of its conviction. People say stupid things sometimes. And what about asking you to create distance between us? I pressed. Was that just blowing off steam too? Another silence. He's been under a lot of pressure. Rachel, I said softly, when was the last time you spoke to your father? He's been trying to reach you for weeks. I've been busy, she replied automatically. Too busy for a 10-minute call to a man with a heart condition? That's not the daughter I raised. Her breath caught audibly. That's not fair. No, it's not, I agreed. But it's what's happening. And it's a pattern. I've seen before, partners who slowly cut their spouses off from family support. Alex is not abusive, she said firmly. Not all control is physical, I replied. Sometimes it's about who you talk to, where your money goes, what you're allowed to question. The line went so quiet, I thought she might have hung up. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. I need to think. I can't talk to you right now. Rachel, please. No, Mom. You've done enough. Just give me some space. The call ended, and I sat motionless, watching the golden light spread across the Denver skyline. The coffee in my hand had gone cold. Robert found me there 30 minutes later, still staring into the distance. Without a word, he pulled up, a chair beside me, and took my hand. She called, I said unnecessarily. He nodded. I heard. She hates me. She's confused, he corrected gently. And hurt. But she's smart, Linda. She'll piece things together. I turned to him, suddenly feeling every bit of my age. What if I've ruined everything? What if she chooses him? Then we'll respect her choice, he said, though the pain in his eyes mirrored my own. But we'll never stop being her parents. I squeezed his hand, drawing strength from the man who had been my rock for over 3 decades. I need to show her the evidence, all of it. Give her a day, he advised. Let her process the shock first. I nodded, knowing he was right, though every instinct screamed at me to go to her immediately. Instead, I focused on the next steps. For Elevate, Victor had already scheduled an all-hands meeting to announce the leadership changes. The press release was drafted. The wheels were in motion. By noon, my phone was buzzing constantly with notifications, emails from board members, texts from Maggie asking for updates, and finally, a message from Victor. Announcement complete. Alex no-show. Team taking it better than expected. Need to talk about next steps. I called him immediately. What do you mean, no show? He didn't come in today, Victor explained. Sent an email at 5 a.m. saying he was taking personal time. I had to handle the announcement alone. I frowned. That's unprofessional. It's understandable, Victor countered. You did just demote him from his own company. His partially built, mismanaged company that I funded, I reminded him. But point taken. What's the team's reaction? Mixed, he admitted. Shock, obviously. Some confusion, but also relief from the finance and operations people. They've been struggling with his leadership style for months. And you explained that his role is still central to the company's future? Emphasized it heavily, Victor assured me. Made it clear that this restructuring is to let him focus on innovation, which is his strength. I nodded absently, though he couldn't see me. Good. Keep things moving forward. I'll handle the personal side. After hanging up, I sent Rachel a simple text. When you're ready to talk, I have documentation of everything. I love you. No response came. That evening, Robert and I ate dinner in unusual silence. 35 years of marriage had given us the comfort of quiet companionship, but this silence felt heavier, laden with worry. As we cleared the dishes, the doorbell rang. We looked at each other in surprise. We weren't expecting visitors. Robert moved toward the door. I'll get it. I followed behind him, some sixth sense already telling me who it might be. The door swung open to reveal Alex, standing on our porch in the gathering dusk. His normally perfect appearance was disheveled, wrinkled. Clothes, hair unkempt, eyes bloodshot. But what caught my attention was the calculated contrition on his face. I had seen that expression before, on countless investment pitches when someone was trying to salvage a failing deal. Alex, Robert said coolly, this is unexpected. I needed to talk to you both, he replied, his voice carefully controlled, despite his appearance. About yesterday. About everything. Robert looked back at me, one eyebrow raised in silent question. I nodded slightly. Come in, Robert said, stepping aside. Alex entered our home with uncharacteristic hesitancy, as if suddenly aware he was on foreign territory. His eyes darted around, taking in the comfortable living room with its wall of books, the framed family photographs, the view of the garden Robert had lovingly tended for decades. Can I get you something to drink? Robert offered, ever the professor, ever polite. No, thank you, Alex replied, remaining standing even as we sat down. I won't stay long. I folded my hands in my lap, waiting. This was his show for now. What happened yesterday, he began, choosing his words with visible care, was a shock. Finding out that my mother-in-law has been secretly controlling my company from the beginning. It's a lot to process. Investing in, I corrected quietly. Not controlling, until yesterday. His jaw tightened momentarily before he continued. Right. Investing in. The point is, I understand now that there's been a serious breakdown in communication. On all sides. I said nothing, merely watched him. Rachel is devastated, he continued, a flicker of genuine emotion crossing his face. She feels caught between her husband and her parents. That's not fair to her. Robert leaned forward slightly. Where is Rachel now? At home, Alex replied. She wanted to come, but I thought it would be better if I spoke to you first. To clear the air. Interesting choice, I thought, but didn't say. I admit, Alex continued, I've made mistakes. The business grew faster than my experience could handle. I got caught up in the vision, in the possibilities. Maybe I spent too freely, made projections that were too optimistic. But that's what entrepreneurs do. We dream big. His voice took, on a passionate edge, the salesman emerging. And Elevate is working, Linda. The technology is sound. The contracts are coming in. With the right support, we could revolutionize how businesses approach sustainability. I know, I said simply. That's why I invested in the first place. That's why you're still Chief Innovation Officer instead of completely removed from the company. He flinched slightly at the reminder of his demotion. About that, I think we need to reconsider the arrangement. The team looks to me as the founder, the visionary. This abrupt change in leadership sends the wrong message to the market, to our clients. I studied him silently. Even now, even after everything, he was still trying to negotiate his way back to the top. Alex, I said finally, why are you really here? He blinked, momentarily thrown off script. I told you to clear the air. No, I interrupted gently. You're here to salvage your position. What you haven't addressed is the real reason I stepped in. His expression shuddered. If this is about some overheard comment at a party, it's about a pattern, I said. A pattern of disrespect toward the family that has supported you in every way possible. It's about isolating Rachel from her parents. It's about taking financial support while mocking the source behind closed doors. Alex's charm slipped further, revealing a flash of the anger beneath. So this is punishment? You're tanking my career because I hurt your feelings? Robert stood suddenly, his academic's demeanor giving way to something fiercer. That's enough. You've been given an extraordinary opportunity most entrepreneurs would kill for. Guaranteed funding, continued involvement in the company you founded, and the chance to focus on the work you claim to be passionate about, without the administrative burdens you've proven you can't handle. Alex took a step back, clearly unprepared for Robert's intensity. Instead of showing an ounce of gratitude, Robert continued, his voice deceptively calm. You come into our home trying to manipulate your way back into control. And worse, you've left our daughter at home, upset and confused, while you attempt to cut a backroom deal with her parents. The calculation in Alex's eyes confirmed my worst suspicions. He wasn't here to reconcile. He was here to negotiate, to find leverage. Rachel doesn't know you're here, does she? I asked softly. Flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. I told you, I thought it would be better. If you handled the business side first, I finished for him, because that's your priority, not her feelings, not the family relationships, but your position. Alex straightened, abandoning the contrite act entirely. Fine, you want honesty? Yes, I came to negotiate, because this isn't just about me anymore. This is Rachel's future, too. My demotion affects her, our plans, the life we're building together. How exactly does it affect her? I countered. Your salary hasn't changed. Your equity remains intact. The only difference is you're no longer making financial decisions you were never qualified to make in the first place. His face darkened. This was never about qualifications. This was about control. From the moment Rachel brought me home, you've been looking for ways to remind me that I don't measure up to your standards. I shook my head slowly. No, Alex, we welcomed you. We helped you. We invested in your dream when no one else would. All we wanted in return was respect. For our daughter, for our family. Respect, he repeated with a hollow laugh. Is that what you call spying on me through Victor? Setting me up to fail? Humiliating me in front of my own board? You set yourself up to fail, Robert interjected, and from where I'm standing, you haven't learned a thing. Alex's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it, his expression changing subtly as he read the message. I need to go. Let me guess, I said. Rachel is wondering where you are? His eyes snapped back to mine, and for a moment, the mask fell completely, revealing a cold calculation that sent a chill through me. This isn't over, Linda. You may think you've won, but Rachel is my wife. When it comes down to choosing between you and me, who do you think she'll pick? The threat hung in the air, naked and ugly. Robert took a step toward him, but I placed a hand on his arm. I think, I said carefully, that you're underestimating my daughter, and that is the biggest mistake you've made yet. Without another word, Alex turned and left, the door closing firmly behind him. Robert and I stood in silence for a long moment, processing what had just happened. He's going to try to turn her against us completely, Robert said finally. I nodded, fighting the nausea rising in my throat. I know. What do we do? I moved to the window, watching Alex's car pull away from our home. We trust Rachel, and we make sure she has all the information she needs to make her own decision. And if she chooses him? Robert asked, voicing our shared fear. I turned to face my husband, drawing strength from the love that had sustained us through 3 decades of challenges. Then we wait, and we're there when she needs us. Because she will, Robert. Sooner or later, she will. The next morning, I woke to a text from Rachel. Can we talk? Just us. No Alex, no Dad. Relief flooded through me. Of course. Name the time and place. She suggested the Denver Botanic Gardens, neutral territory with enough privacy for difficult conversations. We agreed to meet at 10. The gardens were quiet on a weekday morning, the early spring flowers just beginning to emerge. Rachel was waiting for me on a bench near the Japanese garden, her posture rigid, eyes hidden behind sunglasses despite the cloudy day. I sat beside her, resisting the urge to reach for her hand. Thank you for meeting me. She nodded curtly. I have questions. I'll answer all of them, I promised, completely honestly. She seemed to steel herself. Did Alex come to see you last night? Not the first question I was expecting. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? I thought he would, I replied carefully. She removed her sunglasses, revealing reddened eyes. He didn't. I found out because I checked his location when he didn't come home on time. He's been doing that a lot lately, disappearing for hours without explanation. I stayed silent, letting her continue at her own pace. When I confronted him, he admitted he went to see you, said he was trying to smooth things over, to help me because I was so upset. She laughed bitterly. Always the hero in his own story. Rachel. No, let me finish, she interrupted. Because after he told me that version, I called Dad. And he told me what really happened. How Alex tried to negotiate his way back into power without me even knowing. I nodded slowly. That's accurate. She looked down at her hands, which were twisting in her lap. I need to see the evidence you mentioned. All of it. The financial mismanagement, the things he said, everything. I reached into my bag and pulled out a USB drive. It's all here. Financial reports, discrepancies, recordings from the dinner. Party. Texts between Alex and some of his executives discussing how to present inflated projections to investors. Victor has been documenting everything for months. Rachel took the drive, holding it like it might burn her. Why didn't you come? To me sooner, before it got to this point? The question hit me like a physical blow. I was trying to protect you, and honestly, I was waiting, hoping that I was wrong about him, that he would grow into the man you deserved. That wasn't your decision to make, she said, a hint of anger returning. I'm not a child. You're right, I acknowledged. I should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning. I'm sorry. She seemed startled by the straightforward apology. But you're not sorry about taking control of Elevate. No, I said honestly. The company needed intervention. Alex was making decisions that could have destroyed everything he built. Everything you both have worked for. My only regret is not bringing you into the loop earlier. Rachel stared out at the carefully sculpted garden, her profile so like my own at her age, the same determined chin, the same thoughtful furrow between her brows. There's something else you should know, she said finally. Something I haven't told anyone. I waited, giving her space. I found messages on Alex's phone, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. between him and his ex-girlfriend. They've been meeting for coffee, lunch. The texts aren't explicitly romantic, but they're intimate, personal in a way that crosses lines. My heart sank. I'm so sorry, Rachel. I confronted him about it last week, she continued. That's when he suggested we needed space from you and Dad. Said you were too involved in our lives, that we needed boundaries to work on our marriage. The manipulation was so transparent it made my blood boil, but I kept my expression neutral. What did you think about that? I thought it made sense, she admitted, shame coloring her voice. I was hurt, confused. He made it seem like focusing on us, without outside influences, was the mature thing to do. She looked up at me, eyes filling with tears. How did I not see what he was doing? Because you trusted him, I said gently. As you should be able to trust your husband. She wiped at her eyes angrily. I feel so stupid. No, I said firmly. Never that. You loved him. You wanted to believe the best about him. That's not stupidity, Rachel. That's being human. A heavy silence fell between us, broken only by the distant sound of water flowing through the garden's stream. What happens now? She asked finally. With Elevate? With everything? That depends partly on you, I replied carefully. The company changes are in motion. Victor is CEO, Alex remains in charge of innovation and product development. Financially, everything is stable. And personally? She pressed. What happens with us? With Alex and me? I took a deep breath. That's entirely your decision, sweetheart. I can show you the evidence. I can tell you what I've observed, but only you can decide what it means for your marriage. Rachel nodded, turning the USB drive over in her hands. I need time to look through this, to think. Take all the time you need, I assured her. Your father and I are here, whatever you decide. She looked up at me, vulnerability written across her face. Even if I stay with him? The question pierced my heart, but I didn't hesitate. Even then. We love you, Rachel. Unconditionally. For the first time that day, she reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. Thank you, Mom. As we sat together in the quiet garden, I knew we had crossed a threshold. Whatever came next would be difficult, messy, painful. But we had taken the first step back toward each other, and for now, that was enough. 3 days passed with minimal contact from Rachel. She texted once to let us know she was staying with her friend Jessica while she sorted through her thoughts. I respected her space, though every maternal instinct urged me to rush to her side. Meanwhile, Elevate continued its transition under Victor's leadership. As I had expected, the company stabilized quickly once proper financial controls were in place. Alex had been showing up sporadically, according to Victor's reports, doing just enough work to maintain his position while clearly searching for an exit strategy. On the 4th day since our garden conversation, Rachel called. Can I come over? Tonight? Both of you need to hear this. The hours until her arrival stretched endlessly. Robert paced the living room, reorganizing books that needed no reorganizing. I channeled my nervous energy into cooking Rachel's favorite meal, my grandmother's recipe for chicken piccata, roasted vegetables, and homemade tiramisu for dessert. You think she's leaving him, Robert observed as I aggressively whisked the sauce. I think she's made a decision, I replied carefully. Beyond that, I'm not assuming anything. He came up behind me, gently stilling my hands. Whatever happens, we support her. I nodded, leaning back against his solid presence. Whatever happens. Rachel arrived promptly at 7, looking both exhausted and somehow lighter than she had in months. She accepted our embraces, took a deep breath of the cooking aromas, and smiled faintly. You made Nona's chicken. Seemed like the right night for comfort food, I said. We settled at the dining table, the conversation carefully light through the first course. It wasn't until we were halfway through the main dish that Rachel set down her fork and looked up at us. "I've made some decisions," she said quietly. "About Alex. About everything." Robert and I exchanged a glance, then gave her our full attention. "I went through all the evidence," she began. "The financial reports, the recordings, everything. And I had a long conversation with Victor yesterday." This was news to me. Victor hadn't mentioned meeting with Rachel. "I asked him not to tell. You," she added, noting my surprise. I needed to hear his perspective without it being filtered through family concerns. I nodded, respecting her thoroughness. "The picture it paints isn't good," she continued. "Alex has been systematically misrepresenting the company's position, taking credit for other people's innovations, and," she hesitated, "using company funds for personal expenses, including his meetings with Kristen." The ex-girlfriend, I presumed. "Beyond that," Rachel continued, her voice growing stronger, "I've been doing my own accounting of our relationship. The patterns of control, the subtle ways he's been isolating me, the double standards. Looking back, they were always there, but I excused them because I wanted our marriage to work." Robert reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "That's natural, sweetheart." She gave him a grateful smile before continuing. 2 nights ago, I went back to our apartment to get some more clothes. Alex was there with Kristen. They didn't see me. I used my key and heard them in the living room. He was telling her that he had a plan to get back control of the company, that once he did, they could be together openly. My breath caught, even expecting the worst of Alex. This level of betrayal was shocking. "I recorded it," Rachel said, her voice eerily calm. "Added it to your collection of evidence." "Oh, Rachel," I breathed. "I'm so sorry." She shook her head. "Don't be. It was the clarity I needed." She straightened in her chair, squaring her shoulders. "I'm filing for divorce, first thing tomorrow morning." Relief and sadness washed over me in equal measure. Relief that she was breaking free. Sadness that she had to experience this pain at all. "I've also decided to resign from my position at the marketing firm," she continued, surprising us both. "Sweetheart, is that necessary?" Robert asked gently. "Your career shouldn't suffer because of Alex." "It's not because of Alex," she clarified. "At least, not entirely. The firm represents several Elevate clients. There would be complications, conflicts of interest during the divorce, but more than that." She took a deep breath. "I want to work at Elevate." I blinked, not certain I'd heard correctly. "You want to work at Elevate?" She nodded firmly. "As Chief Marketing Officer. I've already discussed it with Victor. The company needs someone who understands both the technology and the market positioning. Someone who can translate Alex's innovations into language clients understand." "And Victor agreed to this?" I asked, still processing. "Contingent on your approval as the primary investor," she replied. "He thinks it's a brilliant solution, actually. It keeps the vision in the family while adding genuine expertise to the executive team." I studied my daughter's face, the determined set of her jaw, the clear-eyed focus that had been missing for too long. "You're sure about this? Working with Alex even during a divorce?" "Alex won't be staying," she said with quiet certainty. "Not once the divorce proceedings start. His pride won't allow it. He'll cash out his equity and move on to his next scheme, with or without Kristen. Victor and I are already preparing for that transition." The confidence in her voice, the strategic thinking behind her plan. This was the Rachel I knew, the one who had been gradually disappearing under Alex's influence. "Then I think it's an excellent idea," I said finally. "If it's truly what you want?" She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "It is. For the first time in a long time, I'm making decisions based on what I want, not what someone else expects from me." We raised our glasses in a silent toast. the weight of recent days lifting slightly in the face of Rachel's renewed spirit. Later, as we moved to the living room with dessert, she broached the subject I'd been carefully avoiding. "I know now why you did what you did," she said quietly. "With Elevate, with the anonymous investment. You saw what I couldn't see." I shook my head. "I made mistakes too, Rachel. I should have been more transparent with you." "Maybe," she conceded. "But your instincts were right. And in the end, you saved not just the company, but me." She paused, looking between Robert and me. "I'm sorry for shutting you out, for letting him come between us." "You have nothing to apologize for," Robert insisted. Rachel smiled sadly. "Yes, I do. I chose him over you, even if temporarily. I doubt myself for that." "Don't," I said firmly. "You were being loyal to your husband. That's not a character flaw, Rachel. It's a strength, even if it was misplaced in this case." She nodded, absorbing this. "The divorce won't be easy. Alex won't give up without a fight, especially when he realizes I'm joining Elevate." "We'll be with you every step," Robert promised. "Whatever you need." "Actually," she said hesitantly, "I was wondering if I could stay here for a while. Just until I find my own place." The simple request, so ordinary and yet so significant, brought tears to my eyes. "Of course you can. This is your home, Rachel. It always has been." As the evening wound down, I found myself watching my daughter, the confident tilt of her head as she discussed business strategy with Robert, the way her hands gestured animatedly when explaining her marketing ideas, the occasional flash of pain that crossed her face when certain memories surfaced. She was wounded but not broken, wiser but not hardened. The experience had changed her, as such betrayals inevitably do, but the core of who she was remained intact. When Rachel finally headed upstairs to the bedroom that had always been hers, Robert turned to me with tears in his eyes. "She's going to be okay." I nodded, leaning into his embrace. "Better than okay. She's going to be magnificent." And in that moment, despite the challenges that lay ahead, I knew it was true. The morning of Rachel's first official day at Elevate dawned bright and clear, the Colorado sun illuminating the mountains with golden light. I found her in the kitchen before 6 a.m., already dressed in a tailored navy suit, reviewing documents with intense focus. A mug of coffee steamed untouched beside her. "Nervous?" I asked, pouring my own cup. She looked up, a determined gleam in her eyes. "Strategic. Alex doesn't know I'm joining the company today. Victor and I agreed to announce it at the all-hands meeting this morning." I raised an eyebrow, impressed by her foresight. "How do you think he'll react?" "Publicly, he'll smile and welcome me aboard. Privately, he'll be furious." She closed her laptop. "But he can't show it without revealing his true colors to the entire company." 2 weeks had passed since Rachel's decision to divorce Alex. Papers had been filed, but the proceedings were in their earliest stages. As she had predicted, Alex had moved out of their apartment, not back to the farmhand parents he had described to us initially, but to a luxury condo paid for by his parents, who, it turned out, weren't struggling financially as he had claimed. Another lie in a tapestry of deception. "The law firm sent over the financial disclosure forms for the divorce yesterday," Rachel said, closing her laptop. "Alex is fighting the prenuptial agreement, claiming he signed under duress." I snorted. That prenup was his idea. He practically bragged about how it protected his intellectual assets from division in case of divorce. A wry smile touched her lips. "Funny how it's suddenly unfair now that it prevents him from claiming half my inheritance." Robert entered the kitchen, already dressed for his doctor's appointment. "Your husband has an interesting relationship with the truth." "Soon-to-be ex-husband," Rachel corrected, standing to give her father a kiss on the cheek. "How are you feeling today?" "Ready to argue with Dr. Matthews about my medication again?" he replied cheerfully. "Don't worry about me. Today is your day. Go shake up that company." She smiled, gathering her things. "That's the plan." As Rachel headed for the door, I called after her. "Text me after the meeting?" "Promise," she replied. "And Mom? Thank you for everything." After she left, Robert and I moved to the patio with our coffee, a morning ritual since his retirement. The garden was coming alive with early blooms, the result of his patient cultivation. "She's stronger than both of us," he observed. I nodded, watching a hummingbird dart between flowers. "She always has been. She just needed to remember it." My phone chimed with a message from Victor. "Ready for today?" A is already in the office, looking tense. I replied simply, "Stay close to R. Document everything." The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. By 8:45, I was finding it impossible to focus on anything else. I tried reviewing property proposals from my real estate team, but my mind kept circling back to Rachel, to Elevate, to what Alex I might do when cornered. At precisely 9:30, my phone lit up with a text from Rachel. "Done. Tell you everything tonight. Going into back-to-back meetings now." That was it. No indication of how the announcement had gone. No hint of Alex's reaction. Just a businesslike update and a promise of details later. I sighed, setting my phone aside. My daughter was establishing boundaries, even with me. It was healthy, necessary, and incredibly frustrating for a mother accustomed to knowing everything. Robert's doctor appointment went as expected. A minor adjustment to his heart medication, stern warnings about stress levels, and the usual dance of a stubborn patient and a more stubborn physician. By the time we returned home, it was nearly noon, and I had 3 missed calls from Maggie Chen. "Linda, finally," she said when I called back. "Have you checked the business news today?" "No, why?" "Alex Parker just gave an interview to Denver Business Journal. It's problematic." I closed my eyes, bracing myself. "What did he say?" "He's painting himself as the victim of a hostile takeover. Claims unnamed corporate raiders forced him out of leadership using underhanded tactics. He's careful not to name you or Wilson Holdings specifically, but anyone in the Denver tech scene can read between the lines." My grip tightened on the phone. "What about Rachel? Did he mention her?" "Not by name. But he referred to family complications that he suggests were orchestrated to distract him while the company was being taken over." White-hot anger flashed through me. "He's blaming his infidelity on us?" "Implying it, at least," Maggie confirmed. "Linda, we need to respond strategically. This could affect investor confidence in Elevate." "I'll call Victor. Can you draft a statement from Wilson Holdings affirming our confidence in the current leadership structure? Keep it professional, focused on the company's future." "Already working on it," she assured me. "And Linda, you might want to warn Rachel. The article mentions that Elevate will be making an announcement about new executive leadership today. If Alex found out about her role before the all-hands meeting." The implication hung in the air. If Alex had discovered Rachel's planned involvement with Elevate before the official announcement, it could explain both the interview and the cryptic nature of her text. "Thanks, Maggie. Send me the draft statement as soon as you have it." I ended the call and immediately tried Rachel's cell. It went straight to voicemail. Next, I tried Victor, with the same result. Finally, I called Elevate's main office number. "Elevate Tech Solutions. How may I direct your call?" "This is Linda Wilson. I need to speak with Victor Rodriguez immediately." "I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson, but Mr. Rodriguez is in meetings all day. Would you like to leave a message?" "Yes. Tell him to call me as soon as possible regarding Alex Parker's interview." "Certainly. And may I say, we're all very excited about the announcement this morning. Mrs. Parker is going to be an amazing addition to the leadership team." I thanked the receptionist and hung up, somewhat reassured. At least the staff seemed positive about Rachel's new role. Unable to reach anyone directly involved, I pulled up the Denver Business Journal website and found the article. The headline alone made my blood boil. Elevate Tech founder Alex Parker speaks out. Innovation stifled by corporate politics. The interview was a masterclass in professional victim playing. Alex portrayed himself as a visionary held back by risk-averse investors, a creative force being crushed by bureaucracy. He carefully avoided any specific allegations that could be legally problematic, while painting a picture of himself as the wronged party. The most infuriating section came near the end. Parker declined to comment specifically on rumors of leadership restructuring at Elevate, saying only, "When personal and professional lines blur, objectivity is the first casualty. I founded Elevate to create environmental solutions, not to navigate family politics that have no place in the boardroom." The interviewer then noted, "Sources close to the company indicate that Elevate will announce significant executive changes today, potentially including Parker's estranged wife joining the leadership team, a move some industry insiders view as unusual given the couple's pending divorce proceedings." I set the phone down, disgusted. Alex had succeeded in making Rachel's appointment look like nepotism, a personal attack rather than a strategic business decision. He'd managed to tarnish her first day before it even properly began. Robert read the article over my shoulder, his expression darkening. "He's planting seeds for a wrongful termination lawsuit," he observed, his academic mind quickly identifying the legal strategy. Setting up a narrative that he was pushed out for personal reasons, not professional ones. "That won't hold up," I argued. "We have documentation of the financial mismanagement, the unauthorized expenses, the inflated projections. Courts look at patterns, Linda. He's establishing his version of events in the public record. If he creates enough doubt about the motivations behind his demotion..." I sighed, knowing he was right. "We need to get ahead of this. I'm calling our lawyer." The next few hours were a whirlwind of phone calls. To our attorney, to Maggie. About the official statement, to board members seeking to reassure them. Still no word from Rachel or Victor, both presumably locked in the meetings Rachel had mentioned. It was nearly 5 p.m. when my phone finally rang with Victor's number. "Linda, sorry for the delay. It's been quite a day." "I've seen the article," I said immediately. "How bad is it?" Victor's sigh carried through the line. "Internally? Not as bad as it could be. Most of the team has worked with Alex long enough to recognize his tactics. The announcement about Rachel went surprisingly well. She gave a presentation about her vision for marketing that impressed everyone, even Alex's closest allies. And externally? We've had a few calls from clients asking for reassurance. Nothing we can't handle. Your statement helped, and Rachel's presence actually provides continuity that customers find comforting." How did Alex react when Rachel was introduced as CMO? Victor's pause told me everything. He was blindsided, tried to maintain composure during the meeting, but I could see the shock. Afterward, he cornered Rachel in her new office. I intervened before it escalated, but what? "Victor, what happened?" He called her a traitor, said she was sleeping with the enemy. When I stepped in, he accused us of planning this all along, said we'd orchestrated his downfall together. A chill ran down my spine. "Where is Rachel now?" "She left about 20 minutes ago, said she needed some air, that she'd see you at home." I thanked Victor for the update and immediately texted Rachel. "Heard about the confrontation. Are you okay? Where are you?" Her response came quickly. "I'm fine. Needed to process. Having coffee with Jess. Home by 7. Relief washed over me, followed by pride. Rachel wasn't hiding or running away. She was seeking support from her friend, maintaining her independence while still keeping me informed. She was handling this exactly as she should. When she arrived home that evening, her expression was composed, but tired. She kicked off her heels in the entryway and slumped onto the couch beside me. "So," she said simply. That happened. I waited, giving her space to share at her own pace. The meeting itself went fine, she began. I presented my credentials, my vision for Elevate's marketing strategy, some immediate action items to increase our market share. The team was receptive. They've needed direction on the marketing front for months. And Alex? A shadow crossed her face. He sat in the back, arms crossed, this frozen smile on his face. You know the one, the smile that doesn't reach his eyes. I nodded, all too familiar with Alex's practiced charm. Afterward, he followed me to my new office, waited until we were alone, then just exploded. She rubbed her temples, as if trying to erase the memory. Called me every name in the book, said I was betraying him, betraying our marriage. Victor mentioned he intervened, I prompted gently. Thank God for Victor, she affirmed. He must have been watching, because he appeared just as Alex was getting into his stride, made some excuse about needing me for a client call. She smiled faintly. Victor's a good man. The best, I agreed. Did Alex say anything about the interview? Rachel snorted. Oh, yes. He made sure I knew about his exclusive with the Business Journal. Said it was just the beginning, that he'd make sure everyone knew the truth about how he'd been treated. Which version of the truth would that be? Robert asked, entering from the kitchen with a glass of wine for Rachel. She accepted it gratefully. His version, of course, where he's the brilliant victim and we're the villainous family destroying his dream. She took a sip, then added, he also mentioned he's hired Patricia Lawson as his divorce attorney. Robert and I exchanged glances. Patricia Lawson was one of Denver's most aggressive divorce lawyers, known for scorched earth tactics and public battles. He's trying to intimidate you, I said. Succeeding a little, Rachel admitted. But mostly I'm just sad. Sad that it's come to this. Sad that the man I married never really existed. She looked up, a determined glint returning to her eyes. But I won't let him win. Not in court, and not at Elevate. That's my girl, Robert said softly. After dinner, Rachel retreated to her room to prepare for the next day. Robert and I lingered at the table, speaking in low voices. He's escalating faster than I expected, I confessed. I thought he'd try to maintain the facade longer, at least publicly. Robert shook his head. His pride won't allow it. Being demoted was bad enough. Having his wife join the company that demoted him, in his mind, that's an unforgivable humiliation. What do you think he'll do next? Something desperate, Robert replied, his academic mind calculating possibilities. He's losing control of the narrative. People who matter are seeing through his act. He'll need to regain the upper hand somehow. Should we be worried about Rachel's safety? The question had been nagging at me all day. Robert considered this carefully. I don't think he's physically dangerous. His weapon is manipulation, not violence. But we should be vigilant anyway. I nodded, making a mental note to speak with Victor about security measures at Elevate. The next morning, Rachel seemed more settled, more focused. She left for work early, promising to check in throughout the day. I tried to return to my normal routine, property inspections, investor calls, lunch with Maggie to discuss the Elevate situation. But an undercurrent of anxiety followed me. Just after 3 p.m., my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Is this Linda Wilson? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who's calling? This is Carmen Diaz with the Denver Post. I'm working on a story about allegations against Wilson Holdings regarding predatory investment practices targeting family businesses. I'd like to get your comment. My blood ran cold. Excuse me? We've received documents suggesting that Wilson Holdings, under your direction, has a pattern of investing in businesses with the intention of taking control, particularly those run by family members or associates. I gathered my composure. Those allegations are completely false. Wilson Holdings maintains the highest ethical standards in all investment activities. So you deny that you secretly funded your son-in-law's company, only to demote him and install your daughter in a leadership position during divorce proceedings. The calculated framing of the question revealed the source immediately. This was Alex's next move, trial by media. Ms. Diaz, this matter involves ongoing legal proceedings, so I'm limited in what I can discuss. However, I can tell you that Wilson Holdings' investment in Elevate Tech Solutions was made at the specific request of my daughter and then son-in-law when other investors declined. All subsequent leadership changes were based on documented financial mismanagement, not personal considerations. Would you be willing to share that documentation? She pressed. Not at this time, as it may be relevant to pending litigation. But I suggest you verify your sources carefully. False allegations of this nature could constitute defamation. The reporter's tone shifted slightly. We always verify our sources, Ms. Wilson, but it's interesting that you immediately mention litigation and defamation. It's realistic, not interesting, I countered. Please contact our legal team for any further questions. I ended the call and immediately phoned our attorney, Matthew Greenberg, to warn him about the impending story. Next, I called Victor to alert Elevate's PR team, then Rachel. He's going nuclear, Rachel said when I explained about the reporter's call. The Denver Post has a much wider reach than the Business Journal. It's a sign of desperation, I reassured her. And his allegations won't hold up to scrutiny. Maybe not legally, but the court of public opinion is different, she sighed. I'll have Elevate's PR team prepare a statement emphasizing my qualifications and the circumstances of the leadership change. Good thinking. And Rachel, be careful. If he's willing to go this far publicly... I know, she said quietly. Jessica is staying with me at the house tonight. I blinked, surprised. I thought you were coming home after work. I was planning to, but I need to finalize the first draft of our new marketing plan, and it's easier to work from my home office. Plus, I think I need a little more independence right now. The statement stung, though I understood the sentiment behind it. Rachel was in her 30s, a professional woman going through a divorce. Living with her parents, even temporarily, was a step backward she couldn't afford to take for too long. Of course, I said, keeping my voice steady. Let me know if you need anything. After hanging up, I found Robert in his study, surrounded by the books that had been his companions throughout his academic career. Rachel's staying at her place. Tonight, I told him, with Jessica. He nodded, understanding both the practical and emotional implications. She's reclaiming her space. That's good. I know. I just worry. Robert set his book aside. About Alex? About her safety? Or about losing her again? His perception cut to the heart of the matter. All of the above. He held out his hand, drawing me to sit beside him. Linda, you've always been a fighter. It's one of the things I love most about you, but sometimes fighting isn't what's needed. Then what is? I asked, genuinely seeking his wisdom. Trust, he said simply. Trust in Rachel's strength. Trust in the foundation we gave her. Trust that even if Alex does his worst, in the press, in court, wherever, the truth will eventually prevail. I leaned against him, drawing comfort from his steady presence. When did you get so wise? 30 years of literature will do that to a person, he replied with a smile. All human drama has been written before, in one form or another. That evening, a precursor to the Denver Post article appeared online. Just a teaser, mentioning allegations of corporate misconduct against a prominent real estate investor, relating to a family-connected tech startup. No names were used, but the implications were clear to anyone familiar with the Denver business landscape. I spent an hour on the phone with Matthew Greenberg, our attorney, discussing legal options. His advice was measured. Wait for the full article, assess the specific claims, then decide whether to demand a retraction or pursue more aggressive remedies. The truth is on your side, Linda, he reminded me. Documentation of Alex's financial mismanagement, testimony from board members about the reasons for his demotion, the timing of Rachel's hiring, all of it supports your version of events. But perception matters, I argued, especially for Elevate. They're in a growth phase, seeking new clients and partners. This kind of publicity could be devastating. Which is exactly why Alex is pursuing it, Matthew pointed out. He's trying to force your hand, push you into a settlement that restores his position or compensates him beyond what he deserves. So we just weather the storm? For now, he advised. Let's see how substantial his allegations really are. I didn't sleep well that night, my mind churning with scenarios, contingency plans, and worry for Rachel. By morning, the full article had been published online under the headline, Family Feud or Corporate Coup, Inside the Battle for Elevate Tech. The piece was more balanced than I had feared. While it presented Alex's claims about predatory investment practices, it also included statements from Elevate's board defending the leadership change as necessary for the company's financial health. Rachel was mentioned as the new CMO, with a brief overview of her marketing background that actually highlighted her qualifications. Most importantly, the reporter had done her homework. The article noted that Alex's claims of being blindsided by the investment source were complicated by documentation showing he signed multiple funding agreements specifically naming Wilson Holdings subsidiaries as the primary investors. Called Rachel as soon as I finished reading. Have you seen it? Reading it now, she replied, her voice calm. It's not as bad as we feared. No, it's not, I agreed, relief evident in my voice. The reporter actually verified some facts. Alex will be furious, Rachel noted. The article doesn't paint him as the innocent victim he wants to be. A text from Victor confirmed this assessment. A just arrived. Mood. Apocalyptic. Security on alert. I hesitated, then asked the question that had been gnawing at me. Rachel, do you feel safe being there today, with him in this state? I'm not alone, she assured me. Victor has arranged for a security guard to be, coincidentally, near my office all day. Plus, we're in a building full of people. Alex won't risk a public scene that contradicts his wounded visionary image. Her assessment was logical, but it didn't ease my concern entirely. Just promise you'll call if anything feels wrong. Promise, she said. Love you, Mom. The day passed in a haze of activity. Calls with Maggie about damage control, messages from surprised acquaintances who had recognized our family in the article, and a long conversation with Matthew Greenberg about next steps. Through it all, I kept my phone close, waiting for updates from Rachel or Victor. Around 3 p.m., Rachel texted, Meeting with major potential client went well. They hadn't seen article. Too busy actually running their business to read gossip. I smiled, recognizing Rachel's subtle jab at Alex, who had always been more concerned with appearances than substance. An hour later, Victor called. Thought you should know. Alex left early today, claimed he wasn't feeling well. Did he interact with Rachel at all? Not directly, Victor replied. But he spent most of the morning in his office with the door closed on the phone. Our IT department flagged unusual activity on his computer, large file downloads, emails to personal accounts. A knot formed in my stomach. He's gathering company information. Looks that way, Victor confirmed. I've already had IT restrict his access to sensitive materials and client data, but it's concerning. Have you mentioned this to Rachel? Not yet, he admitted. She's in back-to-back meetings with the marketing team. I didn't want to interrupt with speculation. Tell her when she's free, I insisted. She needs to know. After hanging up, I paced the patio, restless energy, making it impossible to sit still. Robert watched from his garden chair, concern etched on his face. What are you thinking? he finally asked. That Alex is planning something beyond bad press, I replied. The article didn't work as he'd hoped. Now he's gathering company data. Robert set aside his book. For leverage or competition? The baka. Question stopped me mid-stride. What do you mean? If I were in his position, Robert mused. With my reputation in question and my company slipping away, I might consider starting fresh. New company, same industry, using what I know about elevates clients and technology. The scenario clicked into place with chilling clarity. He's preparing to launch a competitor, using Elevate's proprietary information, client contacts. It would be illegal, Robert noted. Non-compete clauses, intellectual property, theft. Since when has legality stopped Alex from doing what he wants? I countered. He thinks he's the victim here, that he's entitled to Elevate's success because it was his company. I immediately called Victor back to share this theory. His long silence confirmed he saw the possibility. I'll have it do a deep audit of his access history, he promised, and we'll review his employment contract for the specific non-compete language. By the time Rachel called that evening, the picture had become clearer and more troubling. Victor told me about your theory, she said without preamble. It fits with something else that happened today. 2 of Alex's closest allies in the development team gave notice, effective immediately. They're joining him, I concluded. Almost certainly, she agreed. And they've been working on our core technology for months. They know everything about how it works, what we're planning next. The betrayal felt personal, though I reminded myself this was business. Hardball business, but business nonetheless. What can we do? I asked. Legally? Send cease and desist letters? Prepare for litigation? If necessary, practically? Accelerate our development timeline? Strengthen relationships with existing clients? And prepare for competition we didn't expect for at least another year? Her analytical approach, free from panic or self-pity, filled me with pride. This was the Rachel I had raised, strategic, resilient, focused on solutions rather than problems. Victor and I are working late tonight, she continued. Reviewing all our active projects, identifying vulnerabilities, preparing contingencies. At the office? I asked, concern creeping back in. Is that safe, with everything going on? We're actually at my place, she clarified. Jessica's here too. We've ordered dinner, turned the dining room into a war room. We'll be fine, Mom. The reassurance eased my immediate worry, though the larger situation remained troubling. Keep me updated? I requested. Will do. Try not to worry too much. This is business. Messy, personal business, but still just business. And I learned from the best. After we hung up, I relayed the conversation to Robert, who had been listening intently. She sounds like you, he observed with a small smile. Facing a crisis head-on, already 3 steps into the solution while others are still processing the problem. I sank into the chair beside him. I just wish she didn't have to face this at all. The divorce, the company drama, Alex's betrayal, it's too much for anyone to handle at once. Yet she is handling it, he pointed out, with grace and strength that frankly astounds me. His words reminded me of something my own mother had told me years ago, when I was starting my first real estate venture against overwhelming odds. The only way to discover your strength is to face something that requires every ounce of it. I had never wanted Rachel to need that lesson. But now that it had found her anyway, I could only marvel at how magnificently she was rising to meet it. The next morning dawned with a strange calm, like the eye of a hurricane. I knew the storm wasn't over. Alex's next move was coming. But for this brief moment, there was clarity and purpose in our response. I had just finished my first cup of coffee when my phone rang with Rachel's number. "Mom," she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "You need to see this email. I'm forwarding it now." Seconds later, My phone pinged with the notification. I opened it to find a message from Alexander Parker, sent to Elevate's entire staff, board of directors, and major clients. The subject: line read simply, "The truth about Elevate's hostile takeover." And with that, the eye of the storm passed, and the next wave of chaos began. The email was 5 pages long, a meticulously crafted manifesto detailing Alex's version of events. He painted himself as the visionary founder betrayed by calculating investors. He accused Victor of conspiring with me from the beginning, claimed Rachel had been manipulated into turning against him, and most damaging of all, included carefully selected snippets of confidential board discussions that, taken out of context, seemed to support his narrative of a premeditated takeover. How did he get these board meeting recordings? I asked Rachel, who had arrived at our house within 30 minutes of sending the email. "That's what I'd like to know," she replied, pacing the living room. Her face was flushed with anger, but her voice remained steady. "Board meetings are recorded for minute-taking purposes, but access is restricted to board members and legal counsel." Robert, who had been reading the email with growing concern, looked up. "Is it possible he planted recording devices in the boardroom?" "Possible, but unlikely," Rachel said. "The IT team sweeps for unauthorized devices regularly as part of security protocol." "Then someone gave him access," I concluded. "Someone on the board or with administrative privileges." Victor arrived minutes later, having driven straight from Elevate's offices. His normally composed demeanor was strained, jaw tight with tension. "We have a mole," he announced without preamble. "And I think I know who it is." Rachel stopped pacing. "Who?" "James Thornton, our CFO. He was one of Alex's earliest hires, golf buddies from college. He's been suspiciously absent this morning, not responding to calls or emails." The financial data in Alex's email, Rachel realized. The selective budget figures, the out-of-context projections, those would have come from James. Victor nodded grimly. "It is locking down all systems now, changing access codes, securing client data. But the damage is already spreading. 3 clients have called demanding explanations, and the board is convening an emergency meeting at Tatiadun." I moved to the kitchen, returning with coffee for everyone. Crisis management required clear heads, and none of us had slept much. "What's our immediate response?" I asked, setting the mugs down. "Legal has drafted a cease and desist letter," Victor replied. "We're also preparing a point-by-point rebuttal of Alex's claims for the board and major clients. But we need to decide on our public stance." Rachel took a sip of her coffee, thoughtful. "We could ignore it, refuse to dignify the accusations with a response. Or we could go on the offensive, revealing the full extent of Alex's financial mismanagement." "There's a third option," Robert interjected. All eyes turned to him. "Transparency. Not attacking, not defending, just absolute clarity about what happened and why." "Dad's right," Rachel said after a moment. "Alex thrives on creating conspiracy narratives. The best counter is straightforward truth, presented without emotion or accusation." Victor nodded slowly. "A detailed timeline of events, supported by documentation. Financial records showing the legitimate concerns. Board minutes demonstrating the decision process was thorough and appropriate." "Exactly," Rachel agreed. "No mudslinging, no personal attacks, just facts, presented professionally." I studied my daughter's face, the determined set of her jaw, the clear-eyed focus that had always been her strength. "You should deliver it," I said. "As CMO, you're the natural spokesperson, and your personal connection to the situation makes you the most credible voice." Rachel hesitated. "Alex will say I'm being manipulated, that I'm just a puppet for Wilson Holdings." "Let him," Robert said firmly. "Anyone who knows you will recognize the absurdity of that claim." Victor's phone chimed with a message. He glanced at it, then looked up. "The board meeting has been moved up to 10:30. We need to prepare." The next 2 hours were a whirlwind of activity. Rachel and Victor worked on their presentation for the board, while I contacted key investors to provide reassurance. Robert, with his academic's analytical mind, methodically deconstructed Alex's email, identifying inconsistencies and half-truths that could be countered with documented facts. By the time Rachel and Victor left for the board meeting, we had a comprehensive strategy, not just for surviving Alex's attack, but for emerging stronger. "Call me the minute it's over," I insisted, hugging Rachel at the door. She nodded, her expression resolute. "We've got this, Mom. Truth is on our side." As their car pulled away, Robert joined me at the window. "She's extraordinary." "She is," I agreed, "but I'm still terrified for her." He took my hand, squeezing gently. As parents, that never changes, no matter how capable they become. The waiting was excruciating. I tried to distract myself with work, reviewing property proposals and taking calls from my management team, but my mind kept circling back to Rachel, to Elevate, to the board meeting that would determine so much. Just after 1 p.m., my phone rang with Rachel's number. "It's over," she said, her voice weary but triumphant. "The board is 100% behind us." Relief washed over me. "Tell me everything." Victor presented the financial evidence first, clear documentation of Alex's mismanagement, unauthorized expenses, and inflated projections. Then I walked them through the timeline of events, from the initial investment to the leadership change, all supported by records and correspondence. "And they believed you?" "They did," she confirmed. Especially after James Thornton called in halfway through the meeting to admit that Alex had pressured him into providing confidential information, threatening to reveal some gambling debts James had been hiding. I shook my head, disgusted, but not surprised. "So Alex blackmailed your CFO?" "Former CFO," Rachel clarified. "James resigned, effective immediately. The board has agreed to accept his resignation without further action, provided he cooperates fully with the investigation into leaked information." "What about Alex's email? The damage to client relationships?" "That's where I come in," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "The board has authorized me to lead a comprehensive communication strategy, full transparency with clients, personal outreach to each one, and a carefully worded public statement addressing the situation." "That's a lot of responsibility," I observed. "It is," she agreed, "but it's also an opportunity to reshape Elevate's narrative going forward." Victor pointed out that crises often create openings for positive change, if handled correctly. "He's right about that," I admitted, thinking of my own business history. Some of my most successful ventures had emerged from moments of significant challenge. "What's next on the agenda?" "Victor and I are heading back to Elevate now. We're meeting with the executive team to brief them, then I'll start making client calls. It's going to be a long day." "Will you be home for dinner?" I asked, then immediately regretted the maternal tone. Rachel was a grown woman handling a major corporate crisis, not a teenager with a curfew. To my relief, she laughed. "Probably not. We'll be working late. But I'll stop by tomorrow morning for breakfast, if that works." "Of course. Your father will make his famous blueberry pancakes." After we hung up, I relayed the conversation to Robert, who looked as relieved as I felt. "One crisis navigated," he said, "but I doubt Alex is finished." His words proved prophetic sooner than either of us expected. Just after 4 p.m., the doorbell rang. When Robert opened it, we found Patricia Lawson, Alex's divorce attorney, standing on our porch, legal briefcase in hand. "Mrs. Wilson," she said, her voice coolly professional, "I need to speak with you regarding the Wilson Holdings investment in Elevate Technologies." I stepped forward. "Any legal matters regarding that investment should be directed to our corporate counsel." She smiled thinly. "This isn't just about the investment. It's about your interference in my client's marriage." Robert stiffened beside me. That's an outrageous accusation. Patricia Lawson remained unruffled. Is it? We have evidence suggesting Mrs. Wilson deliberately created conflict between Mr. Parker and his wife by revealing selectively edited conversations, manipulated financial records, and making false accusations of infidelity. My shock must have registered on my face because her smile widened slightly. Yes, we're aware of the alleged affair Mrs. Parker believes occurred. My client categorically denies any impropriety with Ms. Kristen Wells, who was merely providing consulting services related to Elevate's market expansion. The audacity was breathtaking. Rachel had literally walked in on Alex and Kristen together in their apartment, heard Alex promising they could be together openly once he regained control of Elevate. Ms. Lawson, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'm not going to discuss my daughter's divorce proceedings on my doorstep. If you have legal documents to serve, please do so. Otherwise, this conversation is over. Her expression hardened. Very well. She reached into her briefcase and extracted a thick envelope. This is a notice of intent to file a civil suit against Wilson Holdings, and you personally, Mrs. Wilson, for tortious interference in a marriage, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Robert took the envelope, his professor's demeanor masking his anger. Our attorneys will review this and respond accordingly. They should do so quickly, she advised. My client is prepared to make this very public, very quickly. After she left, I called Matthew Greenberg immediately, explaining the situation and arranging for courier pickup of the legal documents. Then I tried Rachel's cell, which went straight to voicemail. I left a brief message asking her to call as soon as possible, careful not to cause undue alarm. Robert examined the documents while we waited for Matthew's assessment. This is a nuisance suit, he concluded, designed to intimidate and distract, not to succeed in court. Expensive? Nuisance, I noted. Lawson's firm charged upwards of $500 per hour. Alex must have financial backing, Robert mused. These legal fees aren't sustainable on a chief innovation officer's salary, especially one who's been living beyond his means. The implication hung in the air. Either Alex had hidden resources we weren't aware of, or someone was funding his legal campaign against us. Matthew called back within the hour. I've reviewed the complaint, he said without preamble. It's aggressive but legally flimsy. They're alleging that Linda deliberately interfered in the marriage by exposing false information about Alex's business practices and personal conduct. That's absurd, I protested. We have documentation of everything. Exactly, Matthew agreed, which is why this won't hold up in court. But that might not be the point. This looks like pressure tactics, designed to force a settlement in both the divorce and the company restructuring. What's our best response? Robert asked. For now, a formal answer to the complaint denying all allegations. Meanwhile, we'll prepare counter-evidence and possibly a countersuit for defamation, depending on how aggressive they get publicly. After thanking Matthew, I tried Rachel again. This time she answered, sounding harried. Mom, I'm in the middle of client calls. Can this wait? I'm afraid not, I said. Alex's attorney just served us with a lawsuit. They're claiming I deliberately interfered in your marriage with false information. Rachel was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was icily controlled. That son of a bitch. The lawyer also implied that Kristen was just a business consultant, that there was no affair. A sharp, humorless laugh. Of course she did. Next, they'll claim I hallucinated walking in on them in our apartment. Matthew says it's pressure tactics, unlikely to succeed in court, but guaranteed to cause more stress and distraction in the meantime, Rachel finished. I need to call my attorney, and Victor should know about this too. It will likely affect Elevate. I'm sorry to add to your burden today, I said. Don't apologize, she replied firmly. Alex is the one who should be sorry. And he will be once this is over. The determination in her voice reassured me. Despite everything, Rachel wasn't breaking. If anything, each new attack seemed to strengthen her resolve. That evening, Robert and I ate dinner in near silence, both lost in our own thoughts. The cumulative stress of the day had left us drained, worried about Rachel, and angry at Alex's escalating tactics. "We should call Rachel again," I said, pushing my barely touched meal aside. "Make sure she's okay." Robert covered my hand with his. "She said she'd be working late. Let's trust her to reach out if she needs us." I nodded reluctantly, knowing he was right. Rachel needed space to handle this crisis her way, not hovering parents adding to her stress. Just after 9 p.m., the doorbell rang, an unusual hour for visitors. Robert and I exchanged concerned glances before he moved to answer it. To our surprise, it was Victor Rodriguez who stood on our porch, looking simultaneously triumphant and exhausted. "Sorry for the late visit," he said as we ushered him inside. "But I thought you'd want to hear this in person." "Where's Rachel?" I asked immediately. "Still at the office, finalizing client communications. She sends her love." He set his laptop on our dining table. "We've had a breakthrough. One that changes everything." Robert brought coffee while Victor opened his computer. "After we learned about the lawsuit against you, Rachel and I started digging deeper into Alex's finances. Something wasn't adding up about his sudden ability to afford Patricia Lawson's services, especially given what we know about his spending habits." "We had the same thought," I said. "Someone must be backing him." Victor nodded. "Exactly. So we followed the money. Our IT team recovered deleted emails from James Thornton's account, communications that weren't just about leaking information to Alex, but about a larger plan." He turned the laptop toward us, displaying a series of email exchanges. "Alex has been in talks with Meridian Ventures for months. They're a direct competitor specializing in corporate environmental solutions." I skimmed the emails, their implications becoming immediately clear. He was planning to jump ship even before the leadership change. Worse, Victor continued. He was shopping Elevate's proprietary technology, client lists, and intellectual property to them, offering himself and a team of key developers as part of the package. Robert leaned forward, studying the emails. "These are dated well before his demotion. This isn't retaliation. This was his plan all along." "Precisely," Victor confirmed. Alex knew his financial mismanagement would eventually be discovered. Rather than face the consequences, he was preparing an exit strategy that would leave Elevate hollowed out while he walked away with a lucrative position at Meridian. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Alex hadn't just been irresponsible with Elevate's finances, he'd been deliberately undermining the company from within, positioning himself to profit from its demise. "What about Rachel?" I asked. "Did he ever intend to include her in this plan?" Victor's expression darkened. "There's an email thread discussing that specific question. Meridian asked if his wife would be joining the transition team, given her marketing expertise. Alex replied that she wasn't part of the package, that their marriage was a convenience nearing its expiration date." My blood ran cold. All those months of Rachel supporting Alex, believing in his vision, defending him to us, while he was already planning to discard both her and the company she had helped build. "Does Rachel know about these emails?" Robert asked quietly. Victor nodded. "She's the one who found the crucial thread connecting Alex to Meridian. I've never seen her so calm with fury." This is corporate espionage, I realized. Not just unethical, potentially criminal. "Our legal team is reviewing the evidence now," Victor confirmed. But there's more. The emails also reveal the source of Alex's sudden legal funding. He scrolled to another exchange, this one between Alex and someone named Jeffrey Wells. "Jeffrey Wells," Victor explained, "is Kristen Wells's father. He's also a major investor in Meridian Ventures. The implications were staggering. Alex's affair with Kristen wasn't just personal. It was part of a calculated business strategy, a way to secure backing for his transition to Meridian. So, the lawsuit against Linda, Robert began, is almost certainly funded by Wells through Meridian, Victor finished. It's not about winning in court. It's about creating enough distraction and negative publicity to destabilize Elevate during a critical period, making it easier for Meridian to poach our clients and talent. I sat back, processing the layers of betrayal. What happens now? Rachel and our legal team are preparing a comprehensive response, Victor said. Cease and desist letters to Alex, Meridian, and Wells. Notification to all parties involved. In the lawsuit that we have evidence of corporate espionage and conspiracy, which we're prepared to turn over to prosecutors if they proceed with their nuisance claims. And the divorce proceedings? I asked. Rachel's attorney will be using these emails to counter any claims about your interference in the marriage. The emails make it clear Alex was planning to end the relationship anyway, as soon as it was convenient for his career. Robert shook his head slowly. All this time, we thought he was reacting to the leadership change, but he was preparing his exit long before that. The leadership change just accelerated his timeline, Victor agreed, and exposed his plans before he was ready to implement them. The realization was oddly liberating. We hadn't caused Alex's betrayal. We had merely uncovered it before he could complete it. Victor closed his laptop. I should get back to the office. Rachel asked me to update you both, but there's still work to be done tonight. Is she all right? I couldn't help asking. Really all right? A small smile crossed Victor's face. She's more than all right, Linda. I've worked with many executives over the years, but I've rarely seen someone handle a crisis with such clarity and determination. You raised an exceptional woman. After Victor left, Robert and I sat at the dining table, still processing everything we'd learned. I can't believe the scale of it, I said finally, the calculated nature of his betrayal. Robert took my hand. I can. We always sensed something was off about Alex. We just didn't want to see how deep it went for Rachel's sake. What worries me now is his reaction when he realizes his plans have been exposed, I admitted. Men like Alex, when cornered, become dangerous, Robert finished gravely. But Rachel is surrounded by people who care about her, who are watching out for her. And she's stronger than we sometimes remember. I nodded, trying to find comfort in that truth. Rachel had resources, support, and now incontrovertible evidence of Alex's true character. Still, a mother's worry wasn't so easily assuaged. I'm going to call her, I decided, just to hear her voice. Rachel answered on the second ring. Mom, I'm guessing Victor filled you in? He did, I confirmed. Are you okay? A soft laugh came through the line. Strangely, yes. There's something clarifying about discovering the person you married is even worse than you thought. It removes all doubt, all second-guessing. You sound peaceful, I observed, surprised. Not peaceful, she corrected. Focused. We have a clear path forward now. The evidence changes everything, legally, professionally, personally. What can we do to help? Just be there, she said simply. Tomorrow is going to be intense. Meridian's CEO has agreed to a meeting in the morning. They're distancing themselves from Alex now that his methods have been exposed. Apparently, they thought he was leaving Elevate amicably, bringing along willing team members and shareable technology. They believed that? I asked skeptically. Or claimed to, Rachel replied. Either way, they're scrambling to avoid legal exposure. Victor thinks we can leverage this into a non-competition agreement, maybe even financial compensation for the attempted poaching. Her strategic thinking impressed me, especially given the personal betrayal underlying these business machinations. And what about Alex? Her voice hardened slightly. His access to Elevate has been completely terminated. Security has instructions not to allow him on the premises. His company email has been shut down, and his final paycheck is being processed. He won't go quietly, I warned. I know, Rachel acknowledged, which is why I'm staying at Jessica's tonight, and why I've hired private security for the next few weeks, until everything is settled. The precaution both reassured and alarmed me. You think he might? I don't think he's physically dangerous, she clarified quickly, but I do think he'll try to confront me, to manipulate the situation somehow. Better to remove the opportunity entirely. Her foresight impressed me. This was the Rachel I had always known was there, decisive, strategic, unwilling to be victimized. I'm proud of you, I said softly. So proud of how you're handling all of this. I learned from the best, she replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Now get some rest, Mom. Tomorrow's another day in the Alex Parker saga, and we all need our strength. After we hung up, I joined Robert in the living room, where he sat reading one of his beloved classics, his way of finding calm in tumultuous times. She's going to be okay, I told him, settling beside him on the couch. He smiled, marking his place in the book. Of course she is. She's your daughter. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks, the weight of uncertainty lifted by the clarity of Alex's exposed treachery. Whatever came next would be challenging, no doubt, but the truth was finally, indisputably on our side. Morning arrived with a flurry of updates from Rachel. Meridian had agreed to full cooperation, providing all communications with Alex in exchange for immunity from litigation. Alex had been officially terminated from Elevate for cause, with the board's unanimous approval. And most surprisingly, Patricia Lawson had withdrawn as Alex's divorce attorney, citing irreconcilable differences regarding case strategy. Translation: She saw the evidence and doesn't want to be associated with his sinking ship, Rachel explained when she arrived for breakfast as promised. She looked tired but vibrant, dressed in a sharp burgundy suit that radiated confidence. Robert set a plate of blueberry pancakes in front of her. Eat. Even corporate warriors need fuel. She smiled gratefully, digging in with appetite that reassured me. The lawsuit against you has been withdrawn too, she added between bites. Formally rescinded this morning. Relief washed over me. That's wonderful news. It's just the beginning, Rachel promised. By end of day, Alex will have no job, no legal representation, and significantly diminished prospects in the Denver tech scene. Word travels fast in this industry. Have you heard from him directly? Robert asked. A shadow crossed her face. He left 17 voicemails overnight, each more desperate than the last. Started with anger, moved to threats, ended with pleading. You didn't pick up? I asked. No need, she replied calmly. Everything that needs to be said will be handled through attorneys now. My divorce lawyer has all the evidence, including the emails discussing how our marriage was a convenience nearing its expiration date. The casual cruelty of Alex's words still stung, even secondhand. I couldn't imagine how Rachel had felt, reading them. What about his parents? Robert asked. Any interference from that quarter? Rachel's expression turned wry. Funny you should ask. I received a very interesting email from Howard Parker last night. Apparently, Alex told his parents an entirely different story about our separation. According to him, I was the one having an affair, with Victor of all people. I nearly choked on my coffee. That's absurd. Completely, she agreed. But it worked for a while. They've been financing his apartment, his legal fees, even a new car. All because they believe their son was the wronged party. And now? Robert prompted. Now they've seen the emails too, Rachel said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. I forwarded the entire thread, including his plans to discard. Me once Meridian hired him. Howard's response was illuminating. Apparently, this isn't the first time Alex has used his parents' support under false pretenses. The conversation shifted to practical matters. Rachel's schedule for the day, plans for further securing Elevate's intellectual property, strategies for retaining key clients potentially approached by Alex. Through it all, I marveled at her composure, her clear-headed focus on solutions rather than recriminations. As she was leaving, coffee in a travel mug and briefcase in hand, she paused at the door. "I've been thinking about something Alex said that first time I brought him home." I waited, curious. "He told me later that he found you intimidating, that you had old money arrogance because you didn't seem impressed by his big talk about changing the world." She smiled ruefully. "What he really meant was that you saw through him from the beginning. You recognized what I couldn't. That substance matters more than style. That integrity isn't just a buzzword for corporate mission statements." "I wanted to be wrong about him," I admitted. "For your sake." "I know," she said softly. "And I love you for that. But I'm glad you weren't wrong. I'm glad you were exactly who you've always been. Someone who values truth over comfort, even when it's difficult." She hugged me tightly, then stepped back with renewed determination. "Now, I have a company to rebuild and a future to reclaim. Wish me luck." "You don't need luck," I told her. "You never have." As Robert and I watched her drive away, heading toward the gleaming towers of the Denver Tech Center where Elevate's offices stood, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Pure, uncomplicated pride, untainted by worry. "She's going to be more than okay," Robert said, echoing my thoughts. "She's going to be extraordinary." And in that moment of clarity, watching my daughter drive toward a future she was crafting with her own strength and wisdom, I knew he was right. The storm wasn't over. Such storms never end neatly. But Rachel had found her way through the worst of it, emerging not just intact, but transformed. The next phase would bring its own challenges: rebuilding Elevate, finalizing the divorce, healing from betrayal. But those were tomorrow's battles. Today, it was enough to know that truth had prevailed, that the masks had fallen, and that my daughter was finally fully herself again. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Forgot to mention, security sweep found listening devices in my office and the boardroom. Alex has been spying on us for months. Perfect ammunition for restraining. Order. We'll call later with updates." I showed the message to Robert, who shook his head in disgust. "Just when you think you've reached the bottom of his duplicity." "There's always another layer," I finished. "But it doesn't matter anymore. Each new revelation only strengthens our position." He nodded, squeezing my hand, "and weakens his. The truth has a way of compounding once it starts emerging." That truth, the full extent of Alex's deception, manipulation, and corporate espionage, was still unfolding, revealing itself in waves of evidence, testimony, and consequences. But for the first time since this ordeal began, I felt absolute certainty that we would weather whatever came next. Not because we were perfect or blameless in every aspect of this complicated situation, but because we had something Alex fundamentally lacked: the courage to face reality, whatever it might be. And in the end, that might be the most important legacy I could have passed to my daughter. Not wealth or connections or business acumen, but the simple, profound strength to stand in the light of truth, even when it burns. 2 months passed, with remarkable swiftness. Summer settled over Denver, bringing long golden evenings and the scent of blooming flowers to Robert's garden. I sat on our patio watching the sunset paint the mountains, reflecting on how much had changed since that day I overheard Alex's cruel words about my old people smell. Elevate had not merely survived the crisis, it was thriving. Under Victor's leadership and with Rachel's marketing vision, The company had secured 3 major new clients and expanded into sustainable agriculture technology. The scandal that Alex had hoped would destroy them had instead created opportunities for Rachel to demonstrate her capabilities to the industry. The Denver business community had rallied around Elevate, impressed by their transparency and resilience in the face of corporate espionage. As for Alex, his fall had been swift and complete. The evidence of his attempted theft of intellectual property had made him radioactive in Denver's tight-knit tech community. No reputable firm would touch him. His parents, once they understood the full extent of his deception, had withdrawn their financial support. The last we'd heard, he had moved to Phoenix, attempting to reinvent himself in a new market that hadn't yet learned his true character. The divorce had been finalized with surprising efficiency once Alex's attorneys saw the mountain of evidence against him. The prenuptial agreement he had once insisted upon became his undoing, leaving him with no claim to Rachel's assets or future earnings at Elevate. Poetic justice, Robert had called it. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I smiled, knowing who it would be. Every Thursday evening for the past month, Rachel had been coming for dinner, a new tradition born from the crucible of crisis. A deliberate choice to nurture family bonds that had nearly been severed by Alex's manipulations. I opened the door to find my daughter standing there, but not alone. Victor Rodriguez stood beside her, looking slightly nervous despite his usual professional composure. "Mom," Rachel said, her eyes bright with something I hadn't seen in a long time, genuine happiness. "I hope you don't mind, but I invited Victor to join us tonight." "Of course not," I replied, stepping back to welcome them both. "There's always room at our table." As they entered, I noticed the subtle way Victor's hand rested briefly at the small of Rachel's back, a gesture of support, of closeness, that spoke volumes. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but there was a foundation of mutual respect and genuine caring that created possibilities I hadn't considered before. Robert emerged from his study, greeting them warmly. "Just in time. The steaks are ready for the grill." Dinner that evening was relaxed, filled with easy conversation and occasional laughter. Victor fit seamlessly into our family dynamic, his thoughtful insights and dry humor complementing our own. The subject of Alex never arose. There was nothing left to say that mattered. After dinner, Rachel helped me clear the dishes while Robert took Victor on a tour of his garden. Through the kitchen window, I watched the 2 men talking animatedly about Robert's prized tomato plants, Victor listening with genuine interest to my husband's horticultural wisdom. "He's a good man," I observed quietly. Rachel followed my gaze, a small smile playing at her lips. "Yes, he is." "How long has this been developing?" I asked, careful to keep any hint of judgment from my voice. "Nothing's developing," she replied, but her slight blush told a different story. "We're colleagues, friends. It's too soon for anything else." "Of course," I agreed. She rinsed a plate, her expression becoming more serious. "But when I am ready, it will be different. I know what to look for now. What matters." "And what's that?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Consistency," she said thoughtfully. "Between words and actions. Between public and private behavior. I want someone who doesn't need to tear others down to feel important. Someone who doesn't think my success diminishes his." She glanced outside again. "Someone who sees my family as an asset, not an obstacle." I squeezed her shoulder gently. "You deserve nothing less." Later, as Rachel and Victor prepared to leave, she pulled me aside while Robert was showing Victor a book on sustainable gardening. "I forgot to tell you," she said with a hint of mischief in her eyes. "I got a new perfume today." "Oh?" I responded, puzzled by the seeming non sequitur. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, elegant bottle, Jo Malone, the same scent she had given me, the one Alex had mocked. "I realized something," she explained, spraying a small mist on her wrist. I've always loved this scent. I bought it for you because it reminded me of elegance, confidence, wisdom, all the things I associate with you." She inhaled deeply. "And, now, it reminds me of strength too. Of knowing your worth." Tears pricked at my eyes as I understood the significance of her gesture. She was reclaiming something Alex had tried to taint, transforming it from an emblem of mockery into a symbol of resilience. "Besides," she added with a wink, "I figure if it's the scent of old people, I might as well get a head start." We both laughed, the sound rising free and unencumbered by the shadows that had hung over us for so long. As they finally departed, Robert joined me at the doorway, his arm around my waist. "Well," he said softly, "I think we're witnessing the beginning of something there." "Maybe," I agreed, "but whatever happens, she's making her choices with open eyes now. That's all we ever wanted for her." He nodded, kissing my temple. "That, and her happiness." "Which she's reclaiming on her own terms," I observed, watching. Their car disappeared down the street. Not defined by a partner or a relationship, but by her own strength. That night, I thought about the strange, painful journey we had all traveled. How Alex's casual cruelty had unintentionally set in motion a chain of events that ultimately freed Rachel from a marriage that would have slowly diminished her. How his attempt to destroy Elevate had instead created the opportunity for Rachel to discover her own professional power. How his efforts to drive a wedge between Rachel and her family had ultimately strengthened those bonds beyond what they had been before. There was a certain symmetry to it all, a balance restored not through vengeance or elaborate schemes, but simply through truth exposed to light. Alex had built his life on appearances, on manipulation, on choosing the easiest path to what he wanted, regardless of who it hurt. In the end, that foundation had proven too fragile to support the weight of reality. Rachel, by contrast, had emerged with her foundation not just intact but strengthened. She had faced betrayal, professional crisis, and personal heartbreak simultaneously, and had found within herself resources of courage and clarity that even I, who had always believed in her, had not fully appreciated. The perfume Rachel had reclaimed struck me as the perfect symbol of this transformation. What Alex had mocked as the scent of age and irrelevance, Rachel now embraced as the fragrance of wisdom earned through experience. She had taken back the narrative, refusing to let his derision define something she valued. 6 months later, I stood in the grand ballroom of the Denver Art Museum, watching Rachel accept the Women in Technology Leadership Award for her work at Elevate. The company had become a model of ethical innovation under her and Victor's guidance, their partnership, both professional and more recently personal, creating a leadership dynamic that industry publications had begun to profile as an example of collaborative excellence. As she delivered her acceptance speech, I found myself remembering that day in the hallway, the sting of overhearing Alex's dismissive words. How small he had tried to make me feel. How completely he had failed. Success isn't built on stepping stones of other people, Rachel was saying to the rapt audience. True innovation rises from collaboration, from recognizing that different perspectives strengthen us rather than threaten us. Her gaze found mine in the crowd, and a smile passed. Between us, private, knowing, complete. In that moment, I realized that the greatest revenge against someone who tried to diminish you isn't confrontation or retaliation. It's living fully, authentically, and joyfully in the knowledge of your own worth. It's recognizing that their opinion was always more a reflection of their limitations than your value. Alex had said I smelled like old people. What he failed to understand was that age brings with it not just years, but wisdom, perspective, and the quiet confidence that comes from weathering life's storms. These were gifts he would never possess, too busy chasing shortcuts to success that ultimately led nowhere. As for me, I would continue wearing my Joe Malone perfume proudly, a fragrance now shared between mother and daughter, a small daily reminder that what others intend as weapons, we can transform into strength. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.